We'll start project cost management today. One of the knowledge areas in the 10 knowledge areas which we have discussed earlier, like project integration management, project cost scope management, project time management, project cost management, quality management, human resource management, procurement management, risk management, communications management, stakeholder management. These are the 10 knowledge areas we discussed earlier, and out of which today we'll discuss in detail about project cost management. So project cost management, what do we discuss basically, and what do we do in project cost management? In project cost management, we do activities pertaining to planning your cost of the project. Every project, it involves money, it involves cost. So it deals in planning the cost of the project, estimating the cost, how much each activity will cost, and at the end of the day, what is the cost of the total project, the budgeting, and how do you control the cost. Most important thing is how do you control the cost. The reason being, you plan, you budget, you do everything, but when you are executing the project, the most important thing is you have to control the cost. You have to make sure that you are on budget as per the plan. Your project is going on, you are not overspending. Okay, so how do you do that? What are the different tools, what are the different techniques, and how do you do that? So when you are planning your project, cost related to the cost, the important thing is you have to consider the life cycle cost. For example, you are developing a product. To develop that product, some cost is involved. Say to develop a product, you are developing a new mobile. To do the research and to develop the product, assume that it is taking $100. But to do the maintenance, to do the operations, how much it costs, the life cycle. So normally any product or any software what you develop, or the outcome of the project, it may have two things, capex and opex. Capex is the capital expenditure, opex is the operational expenditure. Capital expenditure is the first time investment what you put on developing the software. Once you develop the software, in order to maintain that software, the maintenance what you do, the support, the operations what you do, even that you have to take care. So the life cycle costing is both the capex and opex, capital expenditure and operational expenditure. So you have to consider both. For example, you developed a product by doing a project. Assume that it costed $10,000. But every month, the operational expenditure in order to maintain that, it is costing you $5,000. And the life cycle of that particular, say, product, or the life of that particular product is, say, 10 years. So every month it's costing $5,000. $5,000 into 12 months, $60,000 into 10 years, $600,000. $600,000 plus initial $10,000 is your capital expenditure. So $610 is the life cycle cost. So you have to consider both. Sometimes what happens, initial capital expenditure may be more, or Funny developed a different product. The cost of that, the initial capital expenditure of the product is, say, $100,000. Every month, only $50 are required for the maintenance. So 10 years span, 12 into 12 months into for 1 year, 12 months into 50 is $600. $600 into 10 years, that is $6,000. Initial 1 lakh and this is $6,000. This is 1 lakh and $6,000. So capital expenditure may be less, but in the first case, the operational expenses are more. In the second case, capital expenditure is more, but the operational expenditure is less. So when you are, sometimes you do a life cycle costing also. Normally you do it when you are doing the project feasibility. In the initiation stage itself, you will do it. Whether it's feasible or not, what is the capital expenditure, what is the operational expenditure. Sometimes you can do a detailed costing here, life cycle costing. It's only a concept. In order to make you understand this concept better, for example, my wife asked to get a pet. So I went to market to get a pet. In the market, I saw a baby dog, puppy, and they said the cost of the baby dog pet is 5,000 rupees. And I saw a baby elephant also, a small elephant, baby elephant. And they said the baby elephant is costing me 1,000 rupees. I felt baby elephant is better because it's only costing me 1,000 rupees. And I bought baby elephant with 1,000 rupees, and I felt my wife will be very happy and she will appreciate me. What is the mistake I have done here? Sometimes you have to consider the life cycle costing. And this is a cost management overview. We have not entered into any of the process yet. Okay. So what are the techniques we use for the estimation? Most of the techniques what we use here for estimation are the techniques what we used earlier in estimating the schedule. Like one of the estimations is, say, analogous estimation, parametric estimations, which we have seen earlier. So they overlap because the technique of estimation, the PERT technique, you remember the 3-point estimate, optimistic plus pessimistic plus 4 times most likely divided by 6. So these things overlap in cost management also, because both are estimations. There we are estimating the schedule, here we are estimating the cost. And there are 4 processes pertaining to cost management. Plan cost management. As you know, initially, for everything there is a plan. I told for all 9 knowledge areas, you will produce the plans. We have seen scope management plan, we have seen schedule management plan, now it's cost management plan. So cost management plan, primarily what do? You will plan your entire cost management activity. You will develop the policies related to the cost management. You will develop the procedures related to cost management. Who is going to do the estimations of cost in your project? When are you going to do the estimations of cost in your project? Which cost do you consider? For example, your project is 3 years, is 3 years tenure. When you are estimating the cost, today you are estimating the cost of the material of today or the cost of the future, or at the time when you are buying it, or at the time when you are using it. When exactly are you going to take the cost, and which cost are you going to take? In the sense, you are constructing a house. Okay, it's a 3 years activity. Now you are estimating the cost. You need fans and electrical lights and switches. When you are estimating the cost now, the cost of the fan is, say, $100 now. But at the time when you buy after 3 years, it could be $120. Which cost are you going to consider? If you consider the current cost, but when the time when you purchase, it will vary. So you will decide here which costs are you going to consider in plan cost management. You will plan, you will decide on that. And how do you manage the cost? How do you expend the cost? How do you control the project cost? Upfront you do the planning here. And the second one is estimate cost. Once you do the plan, each activity or at a work package level, you do the estimation. Activity 1, how much it costs, or work package 1, how much it costs. Activity 2, how much it costs. Okay. So you do the approximation of the monetary resources, the money required to do an activity. It can be human resources, it can be material, anything. You will do that here in estimate cost. And once you estimate individual costs of the activities or the work packages, then you aggregate all these costs. That will produce your budget. That is determined budget. That will produce your budget. So that is determined budget. Control costs. So as part of the project activities, what you do, you will control the costs. You will make sure that in periodical intervals, you do a close monitoring to check whether you are on budget or you are ahead budget. No, you saved some money, or you are at par. So these are the 4 processes we have. So I am giving you one minute time by head these 4 names. So plan cost management, estimate cost, determine budget, control cost. Can anyone tell the 4 processes in cost management? Now we'll see plan cost management. So It's an identical process where you have in every knowledge area that you will be producing a plan. So here also you will produce a cost management plan. So for this, what are the inputs you require to plan your cost management primarily? So as I told you before, here you will establish the policies related to the cost management, what are the procedures and the documentation for planning, managing, expending, controlling project costs, reporting. When do you report related to the cost? Is it on a weekly basis? You inform all the stakeholders on the progress of your status of your costs, or is it on a monthly basis? Is it on a yearly basis? How do you do that? What is the frequency of audit you do? So somewhere in the middle of the project, you have to go and check whether you are as per the plan pertaining to cost or not. So when do you do that? Everything you will plan upfront here. So to do that, you need project management plan. So project management plan, as I told you, it has the plans of all the other knowledge areas and scope baselines and the baselines. And one of the baselines is a scope baseline. So scope baseline contains what? Anyone? What are the ingredients of scope baseline? Yeah, project scope statement is the most important ingredient. No, WBS and WBS dictionary. Okay, so that is an important input for you to do the cost, to plan your cost management, and your schedule based plan may be required, and maybe other information related to the risks, the risk management plan, other things may be an input for you to plan your project management plan. And you need project charter. So project charter, it has approximate estimations of the budget of the project. If you can recall, it will approximate the estimations, no, the summary budget. So it will give you an idea for you to plan your cost management. So that is also one input. And enterprise environmental factors, like the current exchange rates is one of the thing which you look into, that the EEF, market conditions which are available locally, which are available, which are not available, which you have to import, which you have to export, that will throw you some idea on your cost management plan. Okay. Resource rates, what is the human resource average rate now? For a .NET developer, what is the cost, average cost now? So that will give you a fair bit of idea when you are doing the cost management plan. Okay. These are the EF factors which are useful. OPA, obviously, were previous project, similar projects estimations where you have done the cost management plans, the historical information, the financial databases which are available in our company, and the financial control procedures. Every organization will have their own financial control procedures. Now to control the finances, some policies, okay, you will have, every organization will have its own. For example, you are doing an on-site travel. When you are doing an on-site travel, you may have some bills, when you do the travel, that you have to produce the bills for the money which you have spent. That is a financial policy basically imposed by the organization or government regulation. These regulations are very important. Sometimes some company may ask, they need proofs, even if boarding pass is required when you travel on site. Some companies may go ahead and say, we need a photo with air hostess also. Next to air hostess, you need a photo and you have to produce a photo. It depends, like what are the financial policies, the controls and the procedures, what we are using. So this information related to the OPA is very much required. Like time reporting, how frequently you have to report, financial reports you have to send. This will be the OPS. And of course, the tools and techniques, expert judgment. You need the expertise to plan your cost management. Okay. And you will do the analytical techniques. Analytical techniques is nothing but choosing the strategic option to fund the project. Is it self-funding, or you are funding with equity, or funding with debt? There are different types of funding basically. Or bootstrapping. Self-funding is also called as bootstrapping. You are going to generate funds on your own. You are not, no one is going to fund you, like no, on your own you are going to fund. So what is a way of doing it? Okay. And analytical techniques also looks into the detailed ways to finance project resources, as making, purchasing, renting or leasing. You have to do analysis whether it's good to buy or it's cost effective if I make by my own. No, make or buy analysis. This is called as make or buy analysis. Make or buy. Should I make the product on my own or should I buy it? Sometimes is it good that I rent? Sometimes it's good that I lease. So you do analytical techniques basically, and you will conduct meetings. The third option is meetings. Meetings are important for your cost management plan. You meet with your project sponsor, selected project team members, selected stakeholders, anyone with responsibility for project costs. You will meet them, you will discuss with them, and you will develop the plan. So you develop the cost management plan. So what is the output? Cost management plan. Like any other plan, is a plan which is output here. Like you had scope management plan, time management plan, cost management plan here. So what are the ingredients of cost management plan? What basically a cost management plan will contain? Okay, it contains the format and establishes the criteria. How do you plan your project costs, structure your project costs, estimate your project costs, how do you budget? Everything you will plan it here. Who is going to do? When is going to do? Is Raghav is going to do or Funny is going to do? Who will send the report? Everything you will plan upfront. And the important sections of this cost management plan is the precision level. When I say the level of precision, it tells about the degree to which activity cost estimates will be rounded up or down. $100.49 you will round off to 100. So if it is 89 cents, do you round off to a single dollar or not? No. Anything more than 90, then I will round off to the nearest dollar. If it is 89, I will round off to 90 cents. If it is 99, I will round off to $1. So what is the precision level? The round, where do you round up? Sometimes it's difficult for you to calculate 0.99 cents and all. So you have to round up to the nearest integer. So that's the precision level. And then the units of measure. Are you going to do it in dollars, pounds, rupee, yen? The units of measure. Or is it in staff hours? When you are doing the cost estimation, you will say human resources in hours, 50 hours, 60 hours. Each hour could be $80. So how are you going to measure? Are you going to measure in days? How did you do the cost estimation? Or did you do in seconds? Okay, and you will have the organization procedure links. If you can recall, I told the WBS somewhere at one level you will link to the accounts. Can anyone tell what is that level is called? I told in WBS, one level of the WBS, work packages, above work packages, perfect. It's control accounts. So the control accounts level you will match, like where you will control, you will manage, you will report at that level. So as I told, that control accounts is at a bit higher level, where you are accountable to that level. If your project sponsor asks, or if your finance department asks what is the expenditure, you will report at that level, not at the minute level. Okay, so these organizational procedure links related to the cost, where do you link? You will have the control thresholds. Okay, how much variation of cost slippage is allowed? You have to spend 100 rupees, you have spent 101 rupees. It's okay. You feel that threshold, that is a permitted threshold. 105 rupees. Then you will pitch in. So you decided that any 5% variation, if they overspent by 5%, then I will pitch in and I will try to control. Then the control measures should be in place. Till that time, it's okay. It's fine. So you will decide, when do you pitch in? It can be 5%, 10% or 20%. When should I pitch in and when should I start the controlling the costs? And earned value rules, we'll see what is earned value in control costs. For the timing, just remember it contains the earned value rules. Reporting formats, the templates you will plan here. What type of reports are you going to send, to which of the stakeholders you are going to send? You do it. Okay. And the process descriptions. Each cost management process. I told there are 4 processes. Estimate cost. What do you do in estimate cost? How do you do estimate cost? You will describe that process and determine the budget. The next process is determine the budget. So how do you determine the budget? Who is going to determine? You describe that particular process. And control costs. How are you going to control? Everything you will plan upfront. So this is typically a cost management plan contains this like the precision level, the units of measure, the organization procedure links, control thresholds, all these things. What are the different types of earned value techniques and rules we use, reporting formats, process descriptions, etc. So we are done with the one process. So now your cost management plan is ready. And the next process is estimate cost. So what are the 4 processes we discussed here? We have discussed cost management plan. And what are the other process? Estimate cost. And you will develop the budget. And finally you will determine the budget. And yeah, controlling the costs. Okay. So now we are going to the second cost, estimate cost. So here you will estimate cost at an activity level or at a work package level as per the convenience, as per the size of the project. If your size of the project is small, normally these estimate costs and the developed budget will be the same almost like. You will be doing as one activity. Okay. So you will determine the amount of cost required to complete the project. It can be at an activity level. It can be at a work package level. So basically to do this, what inputs do you require? You require cost management plan. You require human resource management plan. Human resource management plan is required because in human resource management plan you'll have the staff rates per hour. What is the rate? For a .NET developer per hour $80. For a senior .NET developer per hour $100. And human resource management, what are the plans they made related to human resources which comes at a cost? For example, you introduced monthly award, star award, performer award. So some cost should be factored for those awards also. So that will also help for you to do the cost estimation. So human resource management plan. You need scope baseline because scope baseline is typically it contains the work what you are going to do in the project. Scope baseline contains project scope statement, WBS dictionary. So the project scope statement, it will have various information like the constraints, availability of skilled resources, all this information, what constraints you have in the project. So if there are the constraints, normally you have to spend more cost. Suppose there is a scarcity of availability of skilled resources. You may end up spending more cost to get those the resources which are in scarce. Okay. So project scope baseline will help you that way. Project schedule, project schedule, it contains the entire schedule of the project. If you can recall, the sequencing, the network diagrams, the bar charts, the milestones. On the other day we discussed, project schedule is an output of this developed schedule. So it contains basically 2 things. It contains the type and quantity of resources and amount of time for which these resources. You remember we have done 2 activities in time management. Estimate activity resources, estimate activity duration. For each activity, you will estimate what resources are required, how much are required. For each activity, in estimate activity duration, you will check what is the time taken to complete this activity with the resources available. You need these 2. How many human resources are required? What material is required? What equipment is required? What tool is required? So this project schedule will contains both this information and you will use this information to do the estimation. If you require 3 human resources, the cost is something different. If you require 6 human resources for the same activity, the cost is more. If you do it in 2 hours, the cost is something different. If you do it in 20 hours, the cost is different. So you need that estimate activity resource information and estimate activity duration information. So that will be an input for you to do the cost estimation. and risk register. Remember, related to the risks also you have to spend something to handle those risks basically. For example, there is a risk of fire. You purchase some insurance bond for that. That comes at a cost. So that also should go into your cost estimation. Okay. So the risk register will help you that way related to the risks in order to respond to the risks, what are the costs, and EEF and OPA. EEF is marketplace conditions. What is the average cost for a .NET developer in the market? You may have that in the EEF. The published commercial information we call. You need a bulldozer to construct a house. Per hour, what is the bulldozer rate? You need for 10 hours. What is the bulldozer rate? It will give you an information on the supply and demand conditions. Because supply and demand are the factors which influence the cost of your resources. And you have the OPA. Your lessons learned, historical information. If you have done similar project earlier, how they have done. You can use those things and that will make your job easier. Why do you want to reinvent a wheel? You can use it. So that is a OPA. Okay. And when it comes to the tools and techniques, what are the expert judgment? Of course, to do a cost estimation, you need the expertise. Expert judgment is required. And analogous estimation. Analogous estimation already we have discussed in time management. The same technique we use it here. What is analogous estimation? Anyone?
Taking data from similar or historical available in the organization, activity from the similar or historical data report.
Perfect. So, where you take the values of cost from similar projects as a basis for estimating the same parameter or measurement for a current project. That is analogous estimation. In previous project to do this, it costed me $10. So obviously it will cost me $10 now. Okay. You do that is analogous. Parametric estimation, as we discussed, it uses a statistical relationship between the relevant historical data and other variables. 1 square feet, it costs $5. 100 square feet we are painting. 100 into 5, $500. So that is parametric estimation. Bottom-up estimation. This is something new, maybe you were not encountered in schedule management. Bottom-up estimating is, if you want to estimate some activity, if you are not clear about that, you are not confident about that, you will do what you do is you will break down that activity into further small entities, and from bottom you will do the estimation from bottom to top. That is called bottom-up estimation. For example, assume that there is an activity called painting. How much it costs for painting? You are unable to estimate, and you are not confident that your estimation is right. So you will further break down this activity called painting into smaller entities. Painting, first I will scratch it. I will scratch the wall. This is activity. And once I scratch, then I will apply the white cement. Then I will put the color. So you are dividing that activity called painting into smaller entities, 3 more activities. Now you do an estimation of scratching the wall. How much cost it? Then putting the white paint. What is the cost? Then putting the colored paint. What is the cost? So you will break down. And from bottom you will go to the top. So from that is called bottom up. There are 2 types of approaches normally in general. I am saying it's a top down approach and bottom up approach. Top down is from top to you will come down. Bottom up is from bottom you go up. This is called bottom up estimation. And then the 3-point estimation or the PERT analysis, which you know, like Optimistic plus 4 times most likely plus pessimistic divided by 6. Important formula for the examination. At least one question is expected from this. Okay. And then reserve analysis, which we have already discussed in time management. Anyhow, I'll discuss again. There are two types of reserves as we discussed earlier. Can anyone tell what are the two types of reserves?
Contingency reserve, management reserve.
Perfect. Contingency reserve and management reserve. Contingency reserve is, it is for known unknowns. Management reserve is for unknown unknowns. If you can recall, for risks, basically these reserves you keep for some risks. What if it rains? I have to take a taxi. It's a contingency you keep. Normally you go by bus or normally you go on a cycle. What if it rains? Let me keep some another $10 extra as a contingency to address that risk called rain. You will go by taxi. That is called contingency reserve. You know that it may rain. So it's a known unknowns. It's a known unknowns. Management reserve is unknown unknowns. Management will keep and they may inform or they may not inform project manager also. You may not know that management has kept some management reserve. Or you can keep some management reserve but you don't consider it as your budget. I told you where you are going on a trip to Goa along with your wife. If you need 5,000 rupees, you'll keep another 1,000 rupees, but you don't tell your wife that you are having 6,000. You tell only it's 5,000. So your cost baseline is only 5,000. The another 1,000 you will never consider that you are having it. You take it only under special conditions as a management reserve for the unknown unknowns. So that is reserve analysis. So for each activity, you will add some reserves, some buffer to that. Both contingency reserve and management reserve. These terms are very important not only for the examination, even in real-time world when you are conducting the projects at a top level, when you talk to your customer or when you talk to your project sponsors, these words are invariably used. Have you added contingency reserve? Have you added management reserve? So these language you should be familiar with. As I told you, one of the benefits of the PMP training is it will ensure a common language. Common language. So the moment you say contingency, someone says contingency reserve, you will understand it is a reserve, a buffer that is allocated for the known unknowns. So contingency reserve is for known unknowns. Management reserves are for unknown unknowns. Risk is always unknown, but certain risks you perceive that it may happen. Certain risks even in the wildest of your dreams also you can't imagine. Those are called unknown unknowns. Even for that you keep some money aside. And then the cost of quality. Cost of quality, to give the quality you may require some cost, no? So that also you should include. Not only how much time this activity will take, how many resources are required. If you just confine to that, your estimations may go wrong. For quality also you have to do, no? For quality assurance you need some money. For quality control you may need some money. So the cost of quality also should be factored into your cost. And to do this, obviously you will use some software, project management software. And vendor bid analysis. The next technique is vendor bid analysis. You will call different vendors and you take bids from them and you do the cost estimation. For example, you wanted to buy some furniture. You'll go to 3-4 shops, right? From different vendors, you will ask for the bids. Then you will analyze. Oh, okay, this is the cost of it. This is the cost of this. So when you are estimating the cost, suppose you need a bulldozer for your project. There are 5-6 bulldozer suppliers in your city. You will call each one of them. You will analyze their bids. What is the bid they have submitted for this bulldozer? So this is one of the things you require to estimate cost. And when you are stuck up, which cost you have to take? The group decision making techniques. What are the group decision making techniques? Anyone?
Unanimity, majority, plurality, and dictatorship.
Dictatorship. So when you're stuck with which decision you have to take, that is group decision making technique. Oh, sorry. Kalyan posted a question saying that quality is obviously expected. Why estimate cost? Kalyan, what I'm saying is, when you are for an activity, if you want to do some quality related activities, no, say
Mhm.
you want to do testing of that particular activity, that particular deliverable. So the quality costs, where do they
Okay.
go? The quality assurance, quality control activities, testing. So those costs also should be factored, right?
Okay. So you're saying the resources who work on the quality, I mean the cost of those resources. That's what you're
Exactly.
trying
Now
to
the
say. Any
tools, the statistical
tools? Yeah.
tools, what you use. Suppose you are using Six Sigma now to ensure to reduce the defects in your project. So Six Sigma comes at a cost. No, the people who work on Six Sigma, the tools of Six
Hmm.
Sigma comes at a cost.
Audits and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So outputs. Activity cost estimate. Now you will get activity 1, $5. You will get an estimation of cost of each activity. And remember, when you are doing the cost estimation, you have to look into many things like labor cost, material cost, equipment cost, facilities cost, technology, information technology costs. Even your interest also you have to calculate when you are doing the cost estimation. When I say interest, 2% interest, if you take loan, you have to pay some interest, right? Interest charges, inflation allowance, exchange rates, indirect costs. We'll see what is direct cost, indirect cost later. So all these things. Okay, we'll finish. Direct cost and indirect cost. Can anyone tell the difference between direct and indirect costs?
Direct is what directly gets into the product, and the indirect is like administrative and other costs.
Perfect. Perfect. Murthy. So direct costs are the costs which you can assign directly to the project. The salaries of the employees who are working on the project, that can be assigned directly onto the project directly. If you take air conditioning costs, there are five, 6 different projects who are sitting on the same floor. The entire AC cost, it cannot be assigned to your account, to your project. Everyone has to share. So in a way, indirect costs are shared costs. Security costs, everyone should share it. You cannot assign to a single project. So such costs are called indirect costs. So you have to know these terminologies, direct costs, indirect costs. It may feature in the examination or not, but when your day-to-day world, the terminologies and the nomenclature are very important for you when you are communicating with your stakeholders, your customers. So the activity cost estimate, each activity, how much it costs, you will do an estimation, and you do a basis of estimation. Basically, on what basis did you estimate? What is the confidence level of your estimation? What are the assumptions you have made? What are the constraints you got? So you have to list out. You require this basis of estimate for your stakeholders to understand, or for your successor to understand. Suppose you quit the company, a new project manager came. He will see the estimation. He wanted to know the accuracy. Is it perfect, or what is your confidence? You may say plus or minus 5% variation is possible. Plus or minus 10% variation. Plus or minus 15% variation. So that will indicate your confidence levels also. And what is the precision levels you are talking about, the accuracy levels you are talking about. So the basis of estimates will give an idea for the stakeholders about what are the parameters you have considered when you are doing the estimation. For example, as I told you before, all the costs that are estimated are the current costs. In the sense, as I told you earlier, you want to buy a switch after 3 years. The cost of the switch now is say 100 rupees. So you have taken 100 rupees. After 3 years, it could be 120. So you have to put it in the basis of estimates. I have considered the current cost, not the cost at the time that will be procured. Or you have considered the cost that will be procured. Tentatively, you thought it would be 120 rupees, so you put the switch as 120 rupees. You may mention that. The basis of estimates you have to put. And project document updates. Okay, so these are the inputs, tools and techniques and outputs you look into related to estimate costs. Any doubts here till now? Cost management. Can I have a response from everyone?
Yeah. What is the best method or the benchmarking? Like we should have a future value always, or we should consider present value for the estimation?
Normally, if the size of the project is small, I mean the duration of the project is small, they consider the current value. Okay, say 3 months project or 4 months project or 5 months project, consider. If the project is long term, say 3 years or 5 years, one way of doing it is they take the current value and they add the inflation rate to that and they take that rate. Like for example, 7% is the inflation rate. Every year 7% rate increase is happening in our country on an average. Let us say that 7%. So today it's 100 rupees. After 4 years, 7% of 100 is 107. 7% of 107 is how much? 7% of say 114 is how much? So 7% of, so they will factor that and then they will take that rate if the project is long duration. At the time of purchase, no, that time you are going to purchase. So it depends, like, I mean, depending upon the duration of the project. We don't tell all these things to the client. See, normally in a services oriented company, how the projects run is client will ask for an RFP. He will request for a proposal. He will give the SOW. This is the work you are going to do. No, this is the software I want. So he will ask for an RFP. You will give your proposals with the commercials planned at your side. Like this is what I will. So when you are doing that particular budget arrival, like how much you are going to charge the client, at your end you will do all these estimations. And for this software development, you will give the client that it will cost him $1 million. So $1 million you will give your proposal to him. So if the client is okay on that, he will do a negotiation and he will do that project. So these things, these factors you have to consider at your end. If you don't consider all these factors at your end, what happens? You will end up at loss. And you will not tell all these things to the client also. You don't give this breakup to the client basically. Give an idea and it will give you a precise budget also. If you don't consider all these things, you will miss out something. Maybe you don't factor the risk related to the project. Then you are at a risk.
Yeah.
You don't consider the quality cost. You will consider only how much resource for human resource cost you will consider, and you will tell the client, I want this money. But tomorrow client says, I want very good quality, so you will hire some people or some tools and equipment for this quality. You will miss out. So you should not miss out everything. Just imagine when you are going for a trip to Goa. Okay, if you consider only the travel cost, the train cost, and the hotel accommodation cost, and maybe the taxi cost over there, you are gone. There may be every cost from minute detail you have to consider. Maybe from here to railway station, you may hire an auto. You have to consider that cost. So while going in the auto, maybe you will buy a chewing gum. You have to consider that. Okay, everything. So these tools and techniques will make sure that you are not missing out any of the costs. The cost baseline, when you arrive in a cost baseline, you will give your rough order of magnitude, we say, like plus or minus 5% will do that. So even those factors you will add as a reserve. So that is what the reserve is all about. The reserve analysis is all about. Now, if you think that the cost of a developer now is say $10 per hour, okay, so you will factor it that it may go to $12 or it may come down to $8. So you may factor it like $12. So that reserves you will add it, and at the end of the project you may end up saving some money also. Suppose if this thing comes down.
Yeah.
So this is what I was saying, no, the rough order of magnitude, ROM we say, the accuracy of project estimate. During initiation, it can be minus 50 to 100 plus 100%. And when it comes to a definitive stage, minus 5 to plus 10%. So as Kalyan was saying, if the cost of the resources come down by say 5% or it can increase by another 10%. So you will consider these factors and you will add them as a contingency, a reserve to that, and you will do the estimation. It's called the rough order of magnitude. You have to remember these terms, rough order of magnitude. During initiation, what is the rough order of magnitude? Minus 50 to plus 100%. Very initial stage. You're not even started the project. There you may say that this project may cost 10 to 15 million dollars. 10 to 15 million dollars. That is 50% you are talking more about. Yeah. And the moment you come to a definitive stage, as you know, more and more detail of the project, detailed information about the project. When you do a detailed estimation of the project, then you will have the definitive information. That's called definitive information. Then also, even it's minus 5 to plus 10%. Certain prices are very volatile. The exchange rates are very volatile. If you take India rupee to dollar, exchange rate every day it changes. So also you should have this rough order of magnitude. No, the plus or minus 5%, plus or minus 10%. You cannot estimate precisely most of the times. And now determine budget. The third one. So what are the four processes we discussed? One is the plan scope, the plan cost management. The second one is estimate cost. Now we are determining the budget. How do you determine the budget? You have to do a cost aggregation. Earlier we did at a work package level and at an activity level. Activity 1, $5, activity 2, $3, activity 3, $2. So now you will aggregate. We have only 3 activities in the project, for example. So 5 plus 3 plus 2, $10. So the budget of your project is $10. Okay. That is determining the budget. So basically determining the budget is a process of aggregating the estimated cost of individual activities or work package and to establish an authorized cost baseline. Remember, in determining budget, the output, most important output, what you get is you will get the cost baseline. There is a difference between cost baseline and budget. Cost baseline contains only the contingency reserve. Budget contains even the management reserve. Okay. So let us see that. So what do you require to determine the budget? You need the cost management plan. Okay. And you need scope baseline. Scope baseline you need because it contains project scope statement, WBS and WBS dictionary. So suppose if in the scope baseline, if you can recall, constraints is one of the 6 ingredients. Product scope description, deliverables, assumptions, constraints. These are the things which we have in the product scope statement. So related to the cost, if there are some constraints, you will mention here. Assumptions, you will mention here. So scope baseline will be an input for you. Activity cost estimate. Each cost for each activity, cost for each activity, you will take and you will aggregate here. So you need this. You need the basis of estimations. Okay. Project schedule you may need. Project schedule contains the milestones, the control accounts information, all those things. Resource calendars you may need. Okay. Resource calendars, which resources are assigned to which project, at what time they are assigned. Okay. This will indicate cost for the duration. Remember, when I say budget has to be developed, not the end budget itself, not just the final budget. 6 months project, the budget for this project for this 6 months is say $10 million. But periodical budgeting requirements also you should give. This month, how much money I require. 1 month you may require less money, in the other month you may require more money. In January, I need $10,000. In Feb, I need $100,000. In March, I may need only $5,000. So funding requirements, these are called basically the funding requirements, periodical funding requirements. You may not, but the finance department will release it accordingly. You may not need the entire money at one go. If you take a big bag and say, give me all $1 million, I'm going to start the project, no one is going to fund you. You have to give at what time you need the money, how much money is required. So You'll have even that information when you are determining the budget. Don't think determining the budget is only the final figure that the project cost is $1 million. The periodical funding requirements also you should produce so that your funding will be released accordingly. So sometimes your finance department says, boss, March we can't give so much money. You are saying we need $100,000. We can't give. March, very difficult. Make it in April. So you have to move certain activities to April then. Okay. So resource calendars will tell you, okay, these resources are there in March. I am using a bulldozer, 10 people. I am using this equipment. I am using one computer in March. So for this is the budget required for the month of March. So these resources calendars will give you that idea, like your human resources, when they have been allocated and what time and what are the resources that are allocated. Risk register will help now to aggregate risk response costs. All risks related costs, you may keep it separately. You are buying 5 types of insurance for 5 different risks in your project. You have to list out and you have to aggregate that. So risk related costs will be there in risk register. Agreements. Okay. What is the agreement information and cost related to products, services or results that have been or will be purchased or included when determining the budget. Okay. And OPA, organization process assets. Whatever the previous budgets you have done of similar projects, lessons learned of previous project, these things. Okay. Kalyan has asked a question. What about salary versus project resource cost? How to map those two? Can you be more clear with your question? You have to do a mix and match, a balance of experienced and inexperienced people. So normally these salaries will be factored into the project cost only. If you are using a resource for 6 months, 6 months salary will go into the project cost. So if your project, if the project budget is very less, then it will be a big challenge. Then that is the reason you will have a mix and match. Why? You know why these companies are hiring freshers? The reason being they come at a lower cost. So for administrative activities, for small activities where a bit of training, little training is sufficient for them to do some activity, they get these activities done by them, and with senior resources where the comes at a higher cost, you will get the major activities done by them. So that's how we have to play with the inexperienced and the experienced people. So what are the tools and techniques in order to determine the budget? Cost aggregation. Cost aggregation, as the name suggests, it will aggregate. If you see the WBS, we are decomposing. One of the techniques in WBS, how do you develop the WBS? You take the product scope statement and you will break down into smaller entities. Here this is opposite to the decomposition. You are aggregating. You are totaling all your individual costs of the activities and work package. And reserve analysis. Now you add reserve at a project level. Earlier you have done at a activity level. Reserve analysis, management reserve and contingency reserve. 2 types of reserves for the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns. You have done it at an activity level. Now you do it at a project level, the entire project level. So that reserve analysis you have to do. Expert judgment. To do this you need the expertise and historical relationships. You have to understand when you are developing the budget. The historical relationship, the parametric estimates are analogous estimates, okay, to develop the mathematical model to predict total project costs. Even when you are producing the final budget, you will take old projects. For them, how much, for designing, how much cost it has come. For me, how much it has come. For them, for testing, how much it has come. For me, how much it has come. You'll go and check, right? Obviously, you'll get some confidence if you're at par, because they are similar projects. If they are similar, then it's fine. Okay. Or if they're mostly similar. So the historical relationship with the previous projects you will do, and you will understand if you are on par with them or not. And funding limit reconciliation. Funding limit reconciliation is whatever the funding limits your organization having, like your organization is not having money in March, as I told you earlier. In your childhood, when you go to your parent and you say, can you buy me a bicycle? Your parents say, this month I can't, I don't have budget, I will do it in September. There is a funding limit. So you have to understand in an organization what funding limits they have. So accordingly, you have to plan your expenditure. So you have to reconcile your expenditure with the funding limits what the organization is having. So you should plan the purchase of your bicycle according to your father's funding limits. He is having some limitations related to fund your bicycle. You have to reconcile your plans accordingly, your expenditure accordingly. That is called funding limit reconciliation. Okay, sometimes you have to reschedule your work to level out the rate of expenditures and the funding requirements that are given by the project. That is called funding limit reconciliation. So the funding limit reconciliation is nothing but you will reconcile your expenditure, you will look into your expenditure based on the funding limit, the limits of funding. Okay. And output, cost baseline, very, very important, cost baseline. Okay. So try to understand this diagram. This is the budget. Budget, I told, if you add management reserve, that will become budget to the cost baseline. What did I say about any baseline? Which you will use in the future to do a comparison. So you take a baseline and against which every time you do, whether you are going the way it should be or not. That is called a baseline. So for your project, if the baseline is, say, in 2 weeks you have to spend $5,000, after 2 weeks you sit and you will check whether you have overspent or underspent. That $5,000 is the baseline, cost baseline. Okay. Now let us try to understand. At an activity level you do an estimation. Let me change the pen. At an activity level you do the estimation. 1 minute. At an activity level you do the estimation. No, for you will add contingency reserve at an activity level. Activity 1, actually you estimated $5. As a contingency reserve, there are some risks, you added $2 more. Okay, that is activity contingency reserve. That you do it in a work package level also. You will add the contingency reserve. And above the work package, I told you there will be a control accounts level. Okay. You will tell all the accounts to your account department at this level. They may release the budgets at this level, at a control account level. You will do analysis at this level, above the work package level, at some level, no, control account level. And that will produce you the cost baseline. The entire will produce the cost baseline. And if you add management reserve to the cost baseline, it will become project budget. So it's very simple. Cost baseline plus management reserve is the budget. Okay. But always you should consider you have only this money, cost baseline. And whenever you are reporting to your managers or to your customer, you have to report against the cost baseline. You should not consider that management. So this is a control accounts. This is a jargon, no, which you have to know. As I told, control account is a summary account in the general ledger that suppose a balance in the summary account, consolidated from subsidiary ledgers of sub-projects in a project or projects within a program. So it's a highly technical definition, not to worry, you will not be questioned. It's only, as I mentioned on the top, it's a jargon. Control account is basically where you will control for this particular activity, you know, your funding schedule at this level. Always you keep a close watch at this level. You will give the accounting at that level. For example, if you go to market, you buy vegetables. So in vegetables, your father will ask how much it costed you for the vegetables. He may not go to the level how much brinjals costed you, how much tomato costed you, how much potatoes costed you. So if they are at a very low level, he will not ask everything. He will say, what is the cost of the vegetables? You will tell that this is the cost of the vegetables, and you will submit the balance of the amount at that level. The entire thing will be done at that level. That is called the control account. And normally you will get a S curve, no, when you cost baseline, expenditure and funding requirements, if you analyze, you will get a cost baseline. For example, if you see this diagram, this is the cost baseline. If you see the pink color, no, this is the cost baseline. Okay. So this is the time of the project. As the project is going on, This is the amount you are planned to spend on the project. Okay, this pink line. This is the say expenditure. This is the what amount you are supposed to spend, and this is the expenditure, and this is the funding requirements. Okay, this month you are supposed to have this. This is the expected cash flow year. This is the amount you are supposed to get. This is the amount you are supposed to get here. So they will be funding you on a periodical basis. If you take this curve, it will be always in the shape of a S. Your project budget, again is the management reserve, again is the funding requirements, again is the cost baseline, again is the expenditures. No, it will take the shape of S. So it's called S curve basically. You know, when you have a cost baseline or a time phased budget. Okay, so and we'll have things like cost baseline is what, and project funding requirements. Why project funding requirements is when do you need this funding, whether it is done on quarterly basis or annually at one time. Initially the money is given. Okay, so they will derive from the cost baseline, and based on the cost baseline they will derive how much money is required on a monthly basis. January month, as we discussed before, based on the cost baseline, how much money is required in January, how much money is required in Feb, how much money is required in March. They will not give you continuously the same amount every month unless your cost baseline says so. Okay, so if you see this diagram which I have shown you earlier, okay, the cost baseline, the pink line, whatever you see, it's increasing as the time is going on. The x-axis, you have the time here, time. So it may increase or decrease. It may increase or decrease. So normally it takes a S shape. Your cost baseline normally takes a S shape. Why? As we discussed in the initial stages of the project, when are the costs of the project are more? Start of the project or during the execution?
Execution.
Execution. The start. So the start time, the funding requirements are very less. See, this is the level of the funding requirement you need. This is the money you need. So as the execution goes on, the line will grow. No, so that is the reason normally take the S curve. Your project funding requirements, it take a S curve. These are project funding requirements, and you may end up doing some project documents. So this is called a project document update. Okay. So we'll stop here. Tomorrow we'll start control costs. Very, very important, just like our critical path. Okay. There are close to 12 to 15 formulae. So all these formulas I will explain. I will give you a couple of exercises, at least one exercise to do in the session, and at least 3-4 exercises back to you to do back at home. If you are familiar with these exercises in cost management, end value management, you to know whether you are ahead the budget or you have overspent or at par as per your plan, you have to do these calculations. So these calculations are very important.